So one of the best things to come out of the OGL scandal and controversy has been the discussion of all of these other RPG systems, all these other tabletop systems that people can go out there and explore and enjoy. There's obviously the more popular ones like Pathfinder and Starfinder, Star Trek, Star Wars, things of that nature, the Dune RPG, which I'm actually really interested in, but I'm already committed to learning Starfinder, and so I'll be there for the next couple years at the very least, going through the adventure paths and everything else. But what if you want to get into something that's more like off the chart, like sort of obscure? From what I understand, most of the games on this list over at Dicebreaker are some of the more obscure options. I've only heard of two of these games. One is Call of Cthulhu because it's a big name game. I would never play it because I don't like horror type games or anything like that. And the other one is Cyberpunk or Cyberpunk Red because I've played Cyberpunk 2077 on the PS4, loved it, played the game through twice, loved Edge Runners, can't wait for the expansion. I'll be playing that on the Series X now that I've moved to the next gen console. So I knew of that one. I don't think I would ever play the Cyberpunk RPG though because I get my immersion out of the video game. I don't know that I feel compelled to play it. But anyway, let's we'll play the tabletop, I should say. Let's get into this list here from Dicebreaker. Now, they've got a list here called Kids on Bikes, Blades in the Dark, Cyberpunk Red, Morkborg, Lancer, Trail of Cthulhu, which I think is based on Call of Cthulhu, Monster Hearts 2, Honey Heist, Fiasco, Coyote and Crow, and Ryutama. Now, I briefly have scanned through this list before. So, Kids on Bikes is kind of like a Stranger Things knockoff. Sounds like you can have these RPG adventures with your friends. It sounds like, if this is something I might actually play. Like, if I could find a group of people who wanted to do this on a casual, let's just try it out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just have a quick campaign, assuming they even have campaigns. That's the thing for me. I'm gonna sidetrack this video for a moment because for me as an individual, I homebrew for a living. So everything we do with that world map behind me is the World of the Weave and the Void, and before that was Saga of Lucemia. So for 10 years now, I've been working in the creative space, creating tabletop adventures, MMORPGs, single player RPGs, writing fantasy books, and so on and so forth. So I get my fix in terms of creation and homebrewing from the things that I do professionally. When I go play someone else's game, and this is one of the reasons I have loved Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance for all these years, I like to play adventure packs, modules. It's one of the reasons I was drawn to Starfinder and Pathfinder was because they have the adventure paths, and there's tons of material out there for me to just pick up a book and go through an adventure and then get the next one in the series and the next one in the series and the next one in the series and the next one in the series. And that's what we're building here with that is our modules as they go through the various storylines that tie in with the books and the point and click adventure games. So when it comes to things that I'm going to go play, I need it to have a setting that's really interesting and it needs to have pre-existing adventure packs and modules. I don't want to have to create a story for that world to play. This setting sounds really unique though. It says it's a collaborative RPG, meaning the game master isn't the only person responsible for narrating and building the world. Before they start playing, the group works together to form the town their characters inhabit, its residents, its locations, and general vibe. Having players create the town itself makes them inevitably more emotionally invested into it. I don't disagree with all of that, but that sounds like a lot of work. So if you're going to do this, you need to have people who are willing to sit down with you and go through that creative process of creating the setting that you're going to be playing in the first place. It's intriguing. I mean, if they had adventure packs, I would play them, but I don't want to create something from scratch. That's just my personal opinion. I know that's part of the game, but that doesn't sound that intriguing to me. The setting sounds super intriguing, though. The City of Duskfall, this is Blades in the Dark. City of Duskfall is a dangerous place. Its streets are filled with gangs, guards, and even ghosts. It's also the setting for a steampunk fantasy role-playing game, which is about crawling your way out of the darkest holes of society using wits, connection, and instinct, and it's about the members of a crew who dream of making a steady life for themselves through thievery. They said this is Ocean's 11 in a dark steampunk world. Each session is shaped around a job. You do flashback sequences to explain. So again, it's just a setting. There's no adventure packs from what I can see right off the bat. So interesting setting. Cyberpunk Red, honestly, if I wasn't so invested in the video game, I might want to play this. But because I'm getting my enjoyment out of the video game, I don't feel compelled to want to play this. However, Cyberpunk is a pretty amazing setting. I know it's been around for a long time before the game came out. I've known of it. I've never played in it. I think it's a very interesting take on the future in science fiction. I suppose if I had nothing else to do and the video games were no longer a thing, I would probably sink my teeth into this at some point in time. Morkborg. This one, I don't. From my perspective, it doesn't sound that interesting to me. It says delve into a dark fantasy world where the best hope you can hope for, where the best you can hope for is redemption. And later down, it says it's not about being a hero; it's about finding something worthwhile to cling on to as the last vestiges of humanity are turned to ashes. That does not sound fun to me. Um, People in the game are seeking resolution, redemption, or recompense for their otherwise miserable lives. It features a doomsday clock gameplay mechanic that gradually makes the world a more dangerous place to live in as the world teeters on the edge of destruction. No. Lancer is a mech game. I don't really get into mech games, so this isn't something that I would personally play. It says it draws on classic anime such as Gundam and Evangelion to bring life to its far-flung future, much more upbeat than the grimdark likes of Warhammer 40,000. Which, by the way, I've looked into Warhammer, and one of the reasons I haven't wanted to try Warhammer is because of how grimdark that setting is. It's just like humanity is not nice in that game, and there's all this oppression, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not really going into that. Trail of Cthulhu, you become detectives investigating a terrifying mystery in a horror RPG that is based on the Gumshoe gameplay system designed to simulate the perfect mystery for players to investigate. It's more narrative than combat. It sounds intriguing, but I don't like horror games, so for me personally, I don't think I would play that. But it is something that I think for those of you who like that kind of stuff, this one sounds interesting at the very least. Monster Hearts 2. This one I have zero interest in whatsoever. It says teens and screams abound in a very queer and cool supernatural RPG. I have no desire to play a teenager, and that's what this is about. It says being a teenager is super hard. Having to deal with like chains and social pressures and understanding who you are is plenty to have to cope with. And on top of that, this game's about the trials and tribulations and joys of growing up. Just no. And it's got vampires and werewolves and I'm just like, no. I've watched enough Twilight, and I've read the Twilight books, and if people want to do that, that's fine. I have no interest in playing Twilight, and that's what this is essentially. It's young werewolves and teenagers, and more power to people who want to play this, but I have no desire to do so. Monster Hearts 2 live, no thanks. Honey Heist, simple but hilarious role-playing game about playing criminal bears. Not even remotely interested. Fiasco, nope, it's got cards. I'm not even gonna look at it. Sorry, if it's got cards in it, it's not tabletop. Sorry, I don't. Tabletop needs to have dice, like or something, but not cards. Coyote and Crow. This one sounded super interesting for the setting. I'm not gonna discuss the usage of all this colonialism stuff because that touches on political things that I don't want to get involved in on my channel. But here's the thing that's interesting to me. Hundreds of years after a meteor collision almost wiped out humanity and plunged the world into inhospitable winters during a period known as Awis, players control inhabitants of the world's 5 indigenous-inspired nations as they use advanced technology and a force known as Adanati to thrive in a post-apocalyptic landscape. That sounds super interesting to me. Because remember, going back to what I said at the beginning of the video, story and setting inspires me more than anything else. And that explanation right there sounds super cool. Like I would read a novel set in that world in a heartbeat. That sounds cool. Let's not talk about the use of trigger words here. Let's not talk about, all of that stuff, but let's just talk about the setting. Here for a minute because that sounds amazing. So that's something I might actually look into and see if it's something I might want to learn more about. Dun, 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 dun. Ryutama. Japanese role-playing game about exploring a world populated by seasonal dragons. It doesn't sound interesting. It also talks about how it's a chilled lo-fi experience with plenty of fantastical wonder, and it's about companionship and unforgettable experiences rather than the goal itself. I like goals. I like we got to take out this big bad guy. We got to deal with this crisis, etc. Those are the settings I like. So, from my perspective, looking at this list that Dicebreaker gave, I think from my personal take on things, out of all the games on here, the only one that really interests me enough to want to look into more is this one right here, um, Coyote and Crow. And I'm gonna go look this up really quick. They have a website. Ooh, it's a Nebula. Hang on. I'll go back to that Google search. Nebula Award nominated sci-fi. See that the fact that it got a Nebula Award nomination makes it even more important to me to want to look into this because that means it's got a really good story behind it. Raised $150,000 for the Stories of the Freelance Kickstarter. Cool. Honestly, this sounds really, really, really cool. The more I look into that, I like their art style too. I like most of the things I'm seeing here in terms of the setting. They've even got a novel. It says Hemlock and Sage. Oh, so this came out what November 16th? When last year? The book is written by Tally Inlow. A nice ceremony is a universal rite of passage into adulthood. Binds the recipients to their chosen path animal, bestows upon them a supernatural gift. Man, so this, like I said, all this stuff sounds really cool. Like taking the mythology of the indigenous peoples, the First Nations, and blending that together in a science fantasy landscape. Like I said, this sounds fascinating to me. Wiki. So as long as how cool is this? I think it even says here it's created by an indigenous-led team headed up by Cherokee designer Connor Alexander. Sounds interesting. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of my little video on some of the RPGs in 2023 that you could be looking at trying. This list is courtesy of Dicebreaker, so make sure to follow the link in the description text below if you want to read more about these over on their website. Of course, they've got great stuff that comes out all the time. I like their website, so I use it a lot in my video reporting. So anyway, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, support if you can with memberships, super thanks, super chats, and stickers here on the channel. Don't forget the Patreon page for our own Tabletop World. You can get our source book there, our point-and-click adventure game demo, and pick up the book chapters of the first novel in that series. Links to Discord are down there in the description text below the video, and I'll see everybody in the next episode. Till then, stay safe. Happy gaming, everybody.